One of the wonderful things about chess that I talk about all the time is that it's very much observation. So I would see how my siblings were moving their pieces, and I'd be like, why are you moving it that way? I'd be questioning it even that young. So I asked my dad one afternoon, if he could play a game of chess with me. And I think he was prepared to teach it because he was teaching my siblings how to play. But instead, I played against him and I knew how the pieces moved, and I won a game against him. Looking back, I don't think it was because I made any sort of extraordinary moves. One, because my dad wasn't that great at chess to start with, right? But it was that I watched my siblings do it. And that's why I love when siblings teach each other.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Adeptus On-Air. I am again your host, Mike Hoffman, and today I am joined by leadership strategist, CEO, and lifelong chess champion, Ashley Priore. Ashley, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us for a little while. My first question is, how many moves would it take you to beat me in chess?
I think that you're secretly very good at chess, so I could think that it might
That would
not
be
take.
incorrect, so you're off to a really bad start. No, let's assume I'm not. I mean, I know how to play.
We're gonna go with 10 moves.
Wow. What's the quickest you could beat someone? Someone knows how to play. I mean, when I say knows how to play, knows the rules of the game. What's the quickest you could get someone defeated?
The quickest, I think, based in a tournament, somebody knew the rules. They were pretty good. Was about 15 moves. Mm-hmm.
Wow. But me, 10. I get it. Okay, that's fair. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm not even sure it would take 10. Although, I imagine if I was playing someone of your skill set, I would try and play defense the entire time simply to see how long I could put it off.
Yes. You know what? I find that people are secretly good at chess just because of how they work in their mind. Like somebody that is a strategic person that does play defense. Like sometimes people like in your fields are secretly good at chess, but they don't like to admit it, or they haven't done it. Have you played chess?
Well, again, so to be fair, as a kid, I learned how to play chess, not to the level you did, but I played, and occasionally I would have played with my father or with friends. Now I probably haven't touched a chessboard probably in 30 years, but if there was one in front of me right now, I would know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. To one of your points that I definitely want to discuss later is thinking 2, 3, 4 moves ahead, which is obviously what chess is about, and I'm sure a lot of your leadership training is about. I never saw the board enough to be able to think more than what I'm doing now and maybe what I'm setting myself up for one move later. I didn't have the mindset with the game to think ahead. Okay, after you move 3 more times and I move 3 more times, I got you exactly where I want you.
Right. Right. And that's a skill, I think, is a lifelong skill that people, even myself, I still work on it. Like it's just something we're not programmed to do it that way. We're programmed to make fast, quick decisions. That's how we are in life. And so chess challenge people a bit. And I think that's why some people are afraid to learn it or afraid to get really good at it because it's hard.
It's hard. So how does someone, I mean, not to be funny, but how does someone at 4 years old play competitive chess? I mean, at 4 years old, I think most people might be trying to say, okay, ooh, that bishop's kind of cool looking, that kind of thing. And yet you're not only knowing how to play the game, but you're competing. How does that happen?
I was very lucky. I had siblings growing up that played chess. I'm the youngest of 4. And the youngest siblings are, of course, the best, right? But, I was the youngest and I saw my siblings play and I was so intrigued by it. One of the wonderful things about chess that I talk about all the time is that it's very much observation. So I would see how my siblings were moving their pieces and I'd be like, why are you moving it that way? Why, I'd be questioning it even that young, right? We're all inquisitive. You're watching. And I just got used to it by watching them play. So I asked my dad one afternoon, if he could play a game of chess with me. And I think he was prepared to teach it because he was teaching my siblings how to play. But instead, I played against him and I knew how the pieces moved. And I won a game against him. And, looking back, I don't think it was because I made any sort of extraordinary moves. One, because my dad wasn't that great at chess to start with, right? But he like it was that I watched my siblings do it. And that's why I love when siblings teach each other. And you'll notice this too. A lot of the families we work with, siblings are teaching each other. It's because they do, you know, watch, observe. And that's how I was able to do it. And then I just got really competitive. Like I wanted to win. I'd go into tournaments and I really wouldn't know what was going on. All I knew was I was playing against somebody and I was used to just winning. Like I wanted to win. And my mind was only focused on playing competitive chess.
How does one in something like that train to get better? Now, you might have had the ability in your house to play against older siblings, so you had someone, but clearly your friend group you couldn't play against for you to get better because they weren't there. Nowadays, I'm sure you could simulate chess on computers and
Mm-hmm.
the internet and different apps and so forth to practice. But back then, where there probably weren't as many options like that, an athlete can train by hiring a trainer. Like how
Mm-hmm.
did you train to master the skill even more?
Partly it was that we did go to chess classes. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh used to be a thriving chess space. Grandmasters from all over would come to Pittsburgh to compete, partly because of the universities, we would have locations that you could actually compete in. Like you could go to a space and play chess. So I had a wonderful chess teacher, and he challenged me. And he was one of the big chess teachers in Pittsburgh because his office was nearby where we lived. My siblings went there. I went there. That was the initial thing of how you learn. But at the same time, you needed to add on to that. Just like when you're learning a language, you can't just practice like, you might practice on Duolingo. You still want and need something else to practice. So that's what I did. So I used books and I did puzzles day after day, chess puzzles. You have a position, you try to solve it, whether it's to get a checkmate, whether it's to, attack, it's always puzzles. And it was that memory and that motion in my mind that got it.
So by playing so much, and I gotta believe there's billions of combinations of what a board could look like at any point in the game. But I have to believe there probably aren't too many scenarios on a board that you're like, whoa, that you haven't seen to some degree where you kind of almost intuitively know how to respond to it.
Right. There are so many different combinations, but at the same time, they're all very based in something similar. So I would get used to patterns. It's pattern recognition. It would be memorizing some openings. I would get used to things. And that's the other thing. What takes players to become, average to really great is that they know the pattern, but then they come up with tons of different ways that you can respond to it. And then their opponent is not used to all those ways. So it's a little bit of like that trick and that mental game.
Now, if you're a tennis player and you're competitive at a young age, you know you're playing against someone who has a great backhand or a really weak second serve. So you want to, when you're in these tournaments, are you becoming familiar with who you're going against and you know their strengths and their weaknesses?
Definitely. Once you start to play with them enough. Because we started in Pittsburgh before we started to compete outside of it, Pittsburgh, you would have the same group of people, right, that would go to tournaments. So I would compete against a similar group of people. And it's interesting because you do go into a match and being like, okay, I can notate and, we take notes of our chess game so we can go back and see what we did well, what we did wrong. And you would have a collection of notebooks of people that you played against. And if when you were preparing for a tournament, you would go and say, okay, I know this person does this opening. I know that they get really stressed when the clock is under 5 minutes. I know X, Y, and Z. And that's why I love talking about chess as what it is. It is a sport, right? Because you're training so similarly to what other athletes train with when they're watching videos of the game that they played. They're watching what their opponents might do. It's also similar. So
Yeah.
it was great to be able to get to know people in that way, and you're building a community in that way, and you really want to win and compete.
Is it still fun for you to play chess in a non-competitive venue? So, hypothetically, we're friends. I'm a good chess player. Blah blah blah. I'm really not, but I am. And we're just hanging out one night, like let's play a game of chess, just for the fun of it. No clocks, no one watching. Do you still enjoy that?
Oh yes, that's my favorite. is to do it in that way, because I can just sit and relax. Normally when I'm over a board now, I'm either training kids, I'm training, clients or athletes or whatever, and I'm always trying to get to the lesson of it. Like, here's how chess is going to apply to what you're doing. When I'm just playing with my friend, right, or something, I can just sit there and figure out, okay, how do I want to respond to this? I can come up with a really cool position or something like that, right? Like, I have the most fun when it is in that informal setting, because you don't really do that as much anymore, right? When you get to a certain level.
Now, are you prone when you're playing against a friend or whatever to say, you know what, I'm about to beat you, but let's go back a move.
Yes,
Try
I do
doing
that.
try doing this instead. A, to help them, and B, to kind of keep the game going a little longer.
Yes, I still do that. And my friends sometimes are like, "Oh my god," because they're like, "Let's just do the game," because that's how my mind works. I'm like, "Well, what if you would have done this?" Or I see that they might be losing a piece, and I'm like, "Are you sure you want to move there?" What might be the response, right? If you do something, and you can
About
get
to
to
pounce
know.
on you if you don't change your move. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and you get to know people so well based on how they play chess.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Well, it's like give, just like people who play poker, their give, when they're
Mhm.
bluffing, you know, it's their leaning to the right, or it's their scratching of the head, or it's, something along those lines. Things that they don't even realize they're doing.
Right. Absolutely.
It's crazy. So, do you watch Big Bang Theory?
I have, yes.
So, they've had episodes about Sheldon creating 4D chess.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that. I'm sure you have, or
Yes.
videos of it.
Hmm.
Have you ever thought about, not 4D chess, but you ever thought about how the game of chess could be expanded into other things besides the traditional game?
Absolutely. And it's so funny you mentioned this, because I was just talking with somebody the other day. He's a doctor and he's coming up with a new variant of chess, and he wanted some people to help test it. Right. I'm always thinking about how chess can expand and evolve, because the biggest fear people would say to me is like, how can you play competitive chess when aren't you worried that chess will be solved? Like, what if chess is solved? And they'd be like, you need to come up with some other variants or different things so that the game can continue to expand. So my mind is always thinking about, okay, what else can we do with chess? But then it struck me as I've been doing this work that, even if chess is solved, there's still so many other ways that you can solve a chess match. It's only one. There's so many other things that you can do to evolve and grow. But what fascinates me about chess is just what it does to your mind. So even when we're talking about what different variations can you do, what happens when you do all different types of chess, whether it's, king and pawns or queen and pawns or all different types of fun games, it's still hitting parts of your brain and forcing your brain to think in new ways. And I think that's what's so magical and important about chess.
But when you say chess being solved, I don't know, what does that mean? Because obviously, in every game of chess,
Mm-hmm.
it's a new set of parameters. It's new, two new thought processes. Once one move's different than the last move, it's a whole new game. So how does chess to that point ever get solved? Does that mean people get so good that they can't lose?
In a way, yes. It's also like, if, for those that might be listening that play chess, we have something called a 4-move checkmate, where you follow a very simple pattern and you hope that your opponent doesn't know what that pattern is. And you do the moves, and there's checkmate in the 4th move of the game. It's somewhat similar to that, where people are saying, okay, you can find a way that you can just win a chess game and there's no way that somebody will be able to respond to it. Somewhat like a 4-move checkmate, but people's goal is that, okay, what if we have, and this was huge when Kasparov was with competing against Deep Blue, it was like, okay, what if there are variations where you teach it and everyone just knows how you can get it? Similar like to Connect Four. There's just a pattern you follow and you don't have to think through it. You just manually do it and you know how to get to that point. So it's checkmate. My argument is that, chess is so versatile that I don't think people would memorize all of these different things to try and solve it. But that's still the fear, is that people are going to take out the development of chess or the decision making elements of it. So it's just going to be a manual. Oh, I move here, you move here, I move here, and the game's over.
Does AI play into that?
It can, but still, what's hilarious is if I go to ChatGPT right now and I say, here's a chess position, solve it for me, it'll add pieces on the board that aren't even there. It'll
So
still
it's
not
not
be
quite.
right. It's still now there are some that try to do, some chat can help a bit, but I'm not too worried about that in the conversation because, I think that it can only go so far. If we still prove that Magnus Carlsen and Kasparov could still, beat a computer in it, I think that instead of viewing these things as a threat, we should see them as what can AI help empower or teach us about chess? What new ideas can it give? How can training with a computer help you become a better chess player?
Yeah, yeah. So, in addition to being a competitive chess player at a young age, because that clearly wasn't enough for someone, at 14, you founded Queen's Gambit, which is still going on today.
Mm-hmm.
The full name is Queen's Gambit Chess Institute. Talk about it, because I know it's chess, but I know it's so much more than chess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the things that I found when I was competing at a young age was that chess is still a very white male dominated space. And I knew this, and my sister knew this, and maybe one or two other young women that were competing in tournaments knew this. But when I would go to tournaments, out of the 200 people there, it would really be my sister and I that were the only young women. I remember very distinctly my old chess coach would have at his tournaments what he called a top girl trophy. And it would be given to whoever the girl was that was the best in that tournament, whoever won the most games. And it got to the point where my sister and I each time would just win it because we were the only girls there and he wanted to be fair to the sisters. So one tournament he'd give it to me, one he'd give it to her. It was sort of that weird aspect, right? And as I grew up and what maybe was like 7 or 8 when I could start to maybe understand this more, I was like, okay, there is a real problem here. Not only are we not engaging as many people as we should be in chess, but it's almost this feeling of like, if I'm competing, what if I get bored? What happens next? What is life after this chessboard? So when I first started to teach, I loved it. I was like, wow, we can teach so many strong lessons through chess. But I wanted to get more specific because everyone's like, oh, this is a chess match or play chess, not checkers. And I'd struggle with that because I was like, what does that really mean? And I'd want people to say to me, when you say that, like, what is it? What about chess makes it so creative and interesting and all these, firms want to use pictures of knights or queens to help describe it. And that's where Queen's Gambit really evolved into. So when we started, it was all about how do we teach chess to youth, but also use chess to teach these really important skills: problem solving, decision making, critical thinking, all of these things. So it started in Pittsburgh, but as we've grown, we're now a model for how chess can be used in after school spaces and classes because it's not just the competition. It's when kids play chess, the dendrites in their brain physically grow, and that leads to faster, smarter decision making. Kids that play chess have higher math and reading scores. They're more aware of things going on in their community because they're asking different questions, right? Chess is really much for us this vehicle of youth empowerment. And it's showing that you can be involved in chess and play, and you don't have to compete. Competing is if, you're just like any other sport, football, baseball, whatever. But there's the side of chess where it can help you just become a more engaged and civically minded student.
And but a lot of it though with chess, and I'll say with sports too, the people that I knew that were competitive in a lot of those things came from families, and to your case too, where chess was prevalent. Or listen, academics is important in 95% of homes, but there's important and then there's important, kind of thing. And a lot of the people that I knew that played chess were the ones where, all right, it was academics first, academics second, academics third, maybe social life sixth or seventh, and academics. So I see the benefits of chess, but a lot of people, at least back in the day, didn't play that game unless there was some other force driving them to start
Mm-hmm.
playing that game. So I think it's great that you have this organization that maybe gets people who might not typically
Mm-hmm.
get introduced to the game.
Absolutely. Because we're trying to target areas where, chess is not as visible or prevalent, right? And, when you looked in Pittsburgh when I was growing up, it was very much the same areas. Just when you would look in New York, right? Investment would be in certain areas, but then you had this whole movement of people were playing in parks and in school playgrounds and all of these things, and then it grew. So if more young people can have access to chess, imagine how impactful that can be for themselves and their leadership journey.
Now, part of the people that you've talked about training, besides like business corporations and things like that, is you've talked about actually professional athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of talk about how you're training professional athletes and how incorporating chess has been a benefit to them in whatever sport they're playing.
Mm-hmm. I love this question and this story because it really started very early on. So I had always been a big football fan. And out of all of the sports growing up, because sports were always on and we were always engaged in them, I always loved football. And I remember being very, very young and seeing a press conference with Bill Belichick. And he said something, it was like after I had competed, because it was like on a Sunday press conference or a Monday or something. And he was saying that the game that they played was a complex chess game and he was figuring out what to do next. And as a young chess player, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Maybe it's the connection between these two things, my love of football and my love of chess. So after I had graduated from Pitt and Queen's Gambit was growing, I was with my mentor one afternoon and I was saying to her, I'm really thinking about how we can expand chess into different spaces. And she said, well, you love football and you can talk about it so well. And same with chess. What if you take it to the next level? And I said, well, yeah, that makes sense, because if we teach athletes chess, adaptability, problem solving, all of these things, that really is going to help them become better athletes. And so I remember the first team that I reached out to, I just cold emailed them, was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for those, I guess that, or maybe watching, I do have some Tom Brady things behind me because I was always a
That's
huge.
why I wasn't surprised you said Belichick.
Yes.
Because I see the Brady above your left shoulder.
Exactly. I was a huge Tom Brady fan. And of course, when I first reached out, this was when Brady had officially retired. But still, when I go in, they still have all of this Brady, stuff, because it was only this summer after. And I remember there's a big cardboard cutout of Brady, and I'm like all excited because I'm like, yeah, this is the chance of like, okay, I love the connection. What does this mean? And so when I go in, the Bucks had brought me in because their players had already played chess. They said, our guys love chess and we want to take it a step further. How can we combine what we're teaching these guys and use chess as that vehicle? And that's where they brought me in. And so what I'm seeing as it expanded, because now we've taught a lot of different NFL teams chess and across different sports, the same thing and the same themes come up. One, it's this teamwork aspect. Some people view chess as a very like individual sport. You're yourself are over a chessboard and you are figuring it out. It's you and your mind. More deeply, though, it's how the pieces interact. So each person is going to understand, what chess piece am I? How do I relate to this? How am I going to work together? What happens if I'm under attack? What happens if I'm threatening somebody else? We've built this curriculum around the connection between chess and this teamwork. So that's one of the favorite things I love to share. The other is this adaptability factor. When you have like a 300-pound guy coming at you and you have to respond, right? You only have a short amount of time to respond. So what chess does is it helps in those high stakes scenarios, right? You become better at saying, okay, there's a threat coming at me. What do? I know that this is attacking this. I know I have to respond in this way. Here's what I'm going to do. It helps. It's building those skills. So many athletes like Larry Fitzgerald, Cam Hayward, Amari Cooper, they all attribute their success in the NFL to chess. And I think that's what's so special, is because they're like, yeah, chess is the mental. I get the physical exercise in, chess is the mental.
Well, it's funny because it's not surprising you said football of all the sports, because, when you think about all the decision making that needs to go on, when the quarterback gets to the line of scrimmage and he's taking a 2-second look at the defense, and based upon that, he's either changing the play altogether or he's changing just how the line's going to block.
Yep.
And at the same point in time he's doing that, the defense has their play caller on the field who's responding to that, and he's changing their plays. And then you have a Larry Fitzgerald, for example, who, based upon everything he's hearing, and then based upon maybe how the cornerback is lined up against him, and maybe because he's tilted this way, he's able to think, okay, it's his own defense versus if he's playing him lined up straight, it's a man-to-man or something like that. So there's so many things that go into it. Because when you think about it, if you're watching a 60-minute football game, and you're going to take 3 hours and 15 minutes of your life to watch a 60-minute football game, there's probably 7 minutes of action and 53 minutes of standing around waiting between plays. Because there's a 4 to 5 second play, and maybe I'm a little exaggerating, but probably not much. There's a 4-second play followed by 30 seconds when they all get up, get in the huddle, call play, and start going again. So it really is probably the closest example to chess of all the sports.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I think, why I was so drawn to it growing up. I mean, of course, we can make connections with basketball and all of the things, right? But I think that's why I was so drawn to football, is because it's really, they share so many things. They're so connected. And it's the other thing too is that, Larry Fitzgerald has this famous quote where he said, people don't think guys like us play chess. They don't think about it. They view us as, people that wouldn't be smart enough to play chess. And he's like, you have to be so smart to play football. You have to memorize so many things.
That was my point. Yeah, that's my point. I think of all the athletes, that's where you're in game. That's probably the sport where you have to think and use your brain more than any other sport. Not to say they're smarter than other people in other sports, but you need to think a lot more.
Absolutely. And chess is a training ground for that. Absolutely.
Which is funny when you think about it, but it was to your point before when you said, well, when I went to chess tournaments, it was mostly, white males. Well, you just said it yourself from your observation. It was very consistent with his point, but people don't think someone like me would play chess or someone like me would be smart.
Absolutely.
Because what you just viewed from your own experience would support his comment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting. So there's a lot of factors to it because we just talked about football, but every sport has something that chess would be helpful with. And to me, that's just basic decision making and basic just dealing with pressure and dealing with stress. So even if it's a sport that might have less strategy or less thinking what your opponent's doing or anything like that, there's still the factor of handling the stressful situations, things like that. So I imagine a lot of your lessons aren't necessarily based on strategic as much as it's based upon mental.
Absolutely. And I think it depends too, sometimes we could go into a room and there be people that, play chess all the time. And when you ask them, hey, when we make some connections, what else are you thinking about? They can't do it because they're so used to playing chess in a very specific way. And so then you have people that haven't played chess at all before. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I see so many connections, but here's what I'm struggling with. It's how do I think 3, 4, 5 moves ahead? I'm so worried that I'm going to have my king be checkmated that I'm just only worrying about what's around my king and I'm not worrying about all my other pieces, right? It's a lot of the things that we sometimes I think as chess players take for granted is that like you said, that really basic decision making of understanding the pieces you have in front of you and weighing all of these possible things. That's really hard. And that's why chess is so helpful, is because it's going to help you understand, okay, if I do this, what happens here? I have to protect my king, but I also have to protect my queen, right? She's worth 9 points. I can't lose all my pawns. Even though they're worth 1 point, they provide structure, right? That's what's so important.
You talked before about, a big aspect of chess is thinking 3 moves ahead, 4 moves ahead, 5 moves ahead. And I'm going to guess also that's part of what you talk about with your leadership training, thinking so far ahead. So kind of talk about that when it's beneficial to think ahead, when sometimes that could be a detriment to thinking ahead, and how sometimes thinking so far ahead all the time can just burn you out and exhaust you.
Absolutely. And that's what I see with a lot of executives. And that's where we work on, because I have some people that are like, I make quick decisions. I don't think through enough. I don't have time, so I'm just going to make a quick decision. And they're like, sometimes it's done really well for me because I can do things on the fly and I can, I make good choices. And they're like, but the one time it didn't, it was really detrimental. And they're like, it broke my confidence. And then I have other people that are like, I take so long because I'm indecisive. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't like to make decisions. We see all the ends. We need to be somewhere in the middle, right? And how I'd like to describe it is that there are times in chess where you have an immediate threat. Your king is under attack and you cannot make any other moves. You have to get that king out of check. There are a couple of ways that you can do it, but that's the main goal, because if you don't get your king out of check, that's an illegal move. So I like to understand if a situation or a decision is that urgent, right? And sometimes it is. And I think we can place decisions into these buckets, right? Is it something where if you don't respond, things will fall apart? And most of the time, people are like, I would say 90% of the time, it's not going to fall apart. So I can take a little bit more time to think through it. So what I say then is, you don't have to think 10 moves into the future. I mean, of course, lots of grandmasters, they're amazing because they can think so far ahead and hold all those thoughts. And just, my favorite story is when one of the great chess players, Jennifer Shahade, was playing and her leg went numb because she was thinking so deeply into a position, right? We don't have to do that, right? But what's important is if we say, okay, I do make this decision. If I move here, what will happen to my mission or my core, the most important piece, the king? What will happen
Yeah.
to some of my other pieces, right? How will I be able to respond? If I lose this piece, will I still be okay, right? And of course, we can apply it to whatever specific situation we're dealing with here. The goal is that you're just thinking through possibilities, right? And the odds are the 3 or 4 possibilities you're thinking through are the ones that are likely to happen. And you can prepare for those, right?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting everyone that plays chess to feel like they can think all of those moves ahead. But what's important is you're training your brain to start viewing it in that way.
Yeah, which is interesting because you always think of ramifications of something. But for someone to think it so far ahead at times can be extremely challenging and quite honestly, something that some people simply can't do. But at some point in time, I think sometimes thinking too far ahead,
Yes.
and this is probably something as an expert chess player you've thought about. I think sometimes thinking too far ahead can also be detrimental. You're
Yes.
thinking about what can happen 5 moves from now, but you're not thinking about the damage you could be doing in move number 2, where you might not even make it to move number 5.
Absolutely. And then if you're losing time on the clock, I mean, most chess players will still use a clock, and you could be so focused on what's happening all these moves ahead that your clock's running down. And that relates back to any sort of decision that you're making. If it is a timely one that you have to make, you're spending so much time thinking that, we view it a lot too as in terms of opportunities, right? Not opportunities, not all of them will be there forever. So you have to make the decision. And if you're so worried about all of these moves ahead, you're not even going to have the chance to take hold of the opportunity, right? So what I love about this discussion is that it applies so much to life, and people view chess oftentimes as something that is so complex, and that, I hear people all the time say, oh, I'm not smart enough to play chess. No, that's not true. Every day you're making decisions that are difficult, that are hard, right? Chess is just going to help you make those decisions more.
What about the person who's my age, works all day,
Mm-hmm.
makes decisions all day, wants to come home and just play a game for fun, and wants to play a game just to enjoy themselves? That doesn't necessarily involve so much thinking and decision making.
Yep.
This might not be the right relaxation thing because it is a game that you really need to focus on or you're
Right.
going to get your butt kicked.
Right. Right. And what I say to those people is what's so fun is if you just want to do, you either watch something for fun that's related to chess, somebody solving a chess puzzle, or even something like, Magnus playing a game or something, or, Netflix has a new documentary on all-time female chess champion Judith Polgar. You can do something like that or play a puzzle, but it can be hard, and sometimes I fell into this where I am so used to thinking so deeply and so far ahead that playing a game for fun became a chore, because I was like, my brain wants to think deeply on all of these moves, right? So
That's my
sometimes it's
point.
fun to
Right.
do speed chess or one of those other variants we talked about, right?
Well, that's
Because
the thing. I mean,
it's a window.
when I played chess growing up, and not a lot, we didn't have a clock. Like you mentioned clocks and using clock time and knowing your opponent wants to play fast or play slow. When I was playing with a friend of mine, all right, it's your turn.
Right.
I stared at him when he was done. There was no clock, and he took 10 seconds or 2 minutes. We didn't care.
Right.
And then when he was done, it was my turn. And then if we were hungry, we'd stop. We'd go downstairs, get some pretzels.
Right.
Because we didn't. It wasn't with the competitive rules. It was really just for the pure enjoyment of just playing a game, trying to beat your friend, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one could argue that sometimes in the chess space we have gotten really intense, and that we might lose that comfort of just playing for fun. And that's why it is good to just sometimes go back and do that and just see where your mind goes, to do something for fun that is not high stakes. And if you lose a piece, that's okay, but you're learning why you lost it, right? It can be fun if we go back to that space.
So let me ask you this question now. For someone who's always thinking, because let's face it, a lot of what you do both in chess and in life is based upon decision making and things like that. When you want to turn that part of your brain off, mm-hmm. What do you like to do?
It's a great question. I try to do something, interestingly enough, that is just out of habit. So if you are, if you're doing something with Legos where it literally gives you the instructions and you follow them, so you don't have to think through what are all the things, or sewing or something, any activity where you don't have to make the decisions, I find is what relaxes my brain more. Or even, there would be a time where I would say, okay, because I was an English lit major at Pitt, I would always be reading, and I would oftentimes notate and not read for fun. So now it's nice where I can pull out a book and say, I'm not going to have a pen in my hand. I'm just going to read it and not try to get into all of the deep symbolisms yet, and just have fun and enjoy it. So anything I say that's just like outlined and clear is fun for me.
Now, you said twice that you went to Pitt. Does it bother you that I'm a Penn Stater?
No. My dad loves Penn State. So he loves Penn State. So it's okay. If you said Duquesne, because all my siblings went to Duquesne, then we might have a problem.
Okay. I definitely will not say Duquesne. Okay, that's fine. So how can people follow you and stuff and learn more about Queen's Gambit?
Yeah. So please, visit our website. So Queen's Gambit is qgchess.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm always willing and happy to connect with people. And one thing I say too is that if you are interested in just even the basics of either learning how to play chess or getting better, I'm happy to share any sort of resources and things. People always ask me, what's the best chess app, or what's the best thing out there? And my thing is, there's so many resources, but please actually too, get a physical board, get a chess board, because even when you have it in your office in your space, that's even going to help you think and train even better. So I love chess.com, Duolingo's app, all of that, but also get a physical board. And I promise you that'll help too.
Interesting. Well, this was actually really cool. When I was preparing for it, I'm like, okay, I haven't really played chess in 30 years, but I really enjoyed, hearing about not only your journey in chess, but kind of how you've applied it to so many other things. And I really appreciate your time talking to us.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think this means now that you're going to get back into chess.
One never knows. Although I am, like I said before, I like to come home and not think too much. So it might have to be a weekend activity. Absolutely. Yeah. At nighttime, I really need to turn this brain off a little bit. So.
Yes, absolutely. Or have a chessboard in your office. Anytime somebody comes in, they have to make a move.
Oh, that's not bad. You know what'll happen though? People might stop coming in. Oh, that would be good.
There you go. That could help you. So
you just solved a whole lot of problems.
There you go.
Thanks so much for joining me, Ashley, and thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.